Well, so what's interesting about the lenses that we're creating is that they're C-mount lenses. So, you know, Canon DSLRs, they use EF mounts, Nikons use Nikon mounts. Many cameras have different mounts that they use for their lenses. And since ours will be C-mount, you would need a C-mount camera, or you would need like an adapter to use them. So actually, I think the cameras that they would be most compatible with would be the actual Bolex cameras from back in the day. Yeah.
C-mount is actually, C-mount is actually the most popular mount in the world. There are more C-mount lenses than any other lenses, and that has to do with the fact that they're used on security cameras, and most microscopes, for instance, are basically a fancy C-mount that you can attach a C-mount camera to. Most telescopes have C-mount
most
optics.
Non-film related cameras.
are C-mount oriented. So, they'll exist in that world, but they're really intended for use with our camera. I think the GH2, GH3 cameras by Panasonic have, there's a way to use C-mount with those cameras.
Yeah, I think they're micro four thirds.
Right, they are, but I think that people use C-mount with there's an adapter to use it with the camera. But really, they're intended for use with our camera. There's a few things that are unique about them that make them work with our camera, that make them not ideal to use with other cameras, and the market is really to create, the idea is really to create a system that works together really well, from camera and lenses and accessories and things like that, so that you're getting a full experience when you come to Digital Bolex, as opposed to having to buy a body from these guys and lenses from those guys and kind of mix and match and figure it out. You know these are meant to be married together.
Yeah, they are fixed focus, fixed aperture lenses, that's a little unusual, but that's also something that we felt, you know, you could buy a set of lenses and you could have the option to create different coverage shots more inexpensively than, you know, the average price of a consumer lens right now is pretty expensive. Generally, it's to have a decent lens, you're looking at, you know, $500 to $2,500, and that is really expensive for most people. So we wanted to create something that would be very low in cost, that you could buy a whole bunch of them to cover the range of different types of shots that you would need. And that's also something that would allow people who are not as tech savvy as far as lenses are concerned. You know, they can buy, oh, this is the lens that works indoors and it lets you shoot, you know, a close-up from 4 feet away. It's like very user-friendly, I guess, type of lenses. So they're definitely not going to be for everybody. But we think that this is a good type of lens that isn't available now, that people will definitely find uses for, and will fit well on the turret mount. So you can put 3 of these little, because they're all prime lenses, you can put all 3 of them on there, and if you need to switch to the close-up, then you can switch to the wide shot, switch to the medium shot, and it just allows you to create very strong images that are very specific images. Most lenses have a sweet spot, you know, f and focus distance that is where the lens performs the best. And so instead of, you know, trying to let people who are using the lens find those sweet spots for themselves, we're just making a lens that only has the sweet spot. So it will always be performing at what its best would be.
The problem of lenses is that because we're a 1-to-1 pixel sensor that's very sharp and very low noise, we need a very high resolution lenses to really maximize the sensor and the camera. So most of the cameras that have bigger sensors, they use either pixel binning or line skipping or some other way to get their large number of pixels down to a smaller number of pixels. And because of that, their lines per millimeter resolution of the lenses that are appropriate for those is, you know, sometimes in the 25 to 30 range for lenses that are $500 to $1,500. But we realized that for ours, we needed it to be above 40. So instead of 25 to 30, we need like 40 to 45 lines per millimeter of resolution. And this is just not offered by lenses under $3,000. So we were saying, how can we make a 40 to 45 line per millimeter, so super sharp lens with low distortion for under 300 bucks? That was our goal. And we sat down with a lens designer named Kish, who is famous for making optics for director's viewfinders and other kinds of things like that, which are actually very challenging because in a director's viewfinder, you're essentially making a lens system that can simulate every other lens on the planet and all the other formats. So with this challenge, as Elle said, we decided to make lenses that were fixed focused and fixed aperture. And this means that normally when you design a lens, you, as Elle also talked about, you have a sweet spot. And then you make a whole bunch of compromises in your lens design in order to make it focus at 2 feet and infinity and change f-stop and all that kind of thing. You make a whole series of compromises. So we decided instead of making any compromises at all, we were going to make completely uncompromising lenses that have amazing clarity, low distortion, and really high resolution for a cheap price. And this is how we came to that.
Yeah, and the trade-off is just that they're not adjustable, so you have to adjust your shots to the lens rather than adjusting the lens to the shot.
But the performance and the images you'll get from it will be more than 10 times the value of what you'll pay.
Yeah.